lucky enough to grow your own courgettes, then you'll have lots of flowers throughout the season, which are really excellent eating, especially when they're stuffed, lightly battered and pan-fried. You can use the flowers from marrows or squash and pumpkin. So if you grow any of those, then you'll be able to do this dish. If you don't grow your own, then you can often find courgette or squash flowers for sale at local farmers markets. But anyway, on with the demonstration. Now, in a lot of demonstrations and videos I've seen, the flowers are attached to an immature fruit. Now that's fine, they look quite pretty, but you can use the male flowers as well, and I think that's better because then you could allow all your fruit to go on to mature. Now this is an example of a male flower. There's no fruit attached, it's just attached to a stem. And the stems aren't good eating, so they should just be snapped off. It's easy to do, and then you have your flowers left ready for preparation. Once again, a lot of recipes and videos I've seen have used ricotta cheese to stuff the flowers. But for this recipe, I'm actually going to use a base of cooked rice. It's just ordinary white rice that's been fully cooked and cooled. And I'm going to flavour it with various herbs. In this case, I'm going to use parsley, thyme, and fresh mint, which have all been chopped, some tomatoes, and some cream cheese. So to make the filling, you just place all the ingredients. That's the rice, the herbs, tomatoes, and the cream cheese into a bowl. Season very well with lots of black pepper because you want this to be flavourful once it's cooked. A little salt, and then just mix that all together. The amount you'll need depends on how many flowers you're stuffing, but never overstuff the flowers because they tend to ooze out. Most flowers will take a maximum of 2 teaspoons of filling. Once you've mixed it, have a little taste so that you can adjust the seasoning. And that's just perfect. It's a really creamy, cheesy, but fresh, tangy herb filling. Just need to set that aside and prepare the flowers. The flowers are actually very delicate, so you need to handle them gently. If you just break open the flower, just break it all the way to the top, inside you'll see the pistil, and that needs to be removed. This one is very small, some of them are long, and they need to be removed because they tend to be very bitter. So there we have the flower, which is now ready to stuff. I'm doing 6 here, which will serve 2 people for a starter. Depending on which flowers you're using, i.e. from a courgette or a marrow, as I mentioned earlier, these can actually be a lot longer. Also, the flower sizes will vary. If you're growing your own, it's very rare that you can get all the same size, but it doesn't really matter. So take one of the prepared flowers and just put a heaped teaspoon initially into the centre. That's about right for this large flower. And then close it up and just sort of twist the flowers around at the top. And you do that for all of them. So there are my stuffed courgette flowers. These are actually marrow flowers, and they're now ready to be dipped into batter and shallow fried. As I mentioned earlier, the flowers are actually very delicate, so you don't want a heavy batter. The batter I'm going to make is using self-raising flour, a little bit of salt and some carbonated water, a little bit like a tempura batter. It's actually made very quickly. Just pour the water onto the flour and start to mix. And you're looking for a quite thin batter. Doesn't matter if it's got some of the flour still left in little lumps. When that's fried, it'll just add an extra crunch. And it's literally done in a couple of minutes. It's very thin, and that's what you want, because you really only want a very light coating. It's about the thickness of a pancake batter, perhaps a bit less. And that's it. One little tip. Before you start to dip the flowers in the batter, transfer the batter to a wide, shallow dish. As you can see, there's still flour left unmixed there, that's fine. And the reason for doing this is just that it's a lot easier to dip the flowers into the batter this way than into a jug. So once your flowers are stuffed and your batter is made, heat some oil in a frying pan. Use as large a pan as you can, because you don't want to overfill it with the flowers. You don't need much oil, no more than 2.5 centimetres, that's an inch. I've actually got less here. Heat it until it's very hot and you can tell it's starting to sizzle. Take a flower and, holding it by the tips of the petals, just dip lightly on all sides into the batter, shake off the excess and place very carefully into the oil. Make sure that it's all sealed up still. And don't forget, don't overcrowd the pan, because you need them to get crispy. These will take just a few minutes on all sides until they're crisp and golden brown. I think I'm just about going to be able to get these 6 in to this pan, which isn't that large. They won't take very long to brown on each side, and it's probably easier to use a pair of tongs to turn them. There you can see, lovely and golden brown. Delicious, light, crisp, stuffed courgette or squash flowers. They make an excellent starter.